Welcome, everybody. I am so glad that we can be here today. I would like to introduce you all and welcome you all to Talking Books with Tanisha. I'm just going to pin a couple people. Let me know if you're able to see it on your end as well. I think all of us are here. And maybe what I'll do is start off by just letting you know like why you're here and kind of what this event is. And so Talking Books with Tanisha is a YouTube channel that kind of came to birth like during COVID. It's opportunity for me to share books that were kind of sitting on my heart and my mind, but also to engage with other people around books. Books is a passion of mine, but also literacy is a passion. And the idea that we're able to give access to literacy to both youth and adults really means a lot. It's an important mission for me because literacy embodies power, and power embodies choice, and choice embodies opportunities. And so, mostly more than anything, this is a conversation opportunity for us to talk about the power of literacy and choice. Tonight's super special because this is around Parable of the Sower. And we are living in a world right now, a country right now, where there are a lot of parallels between what Octavia Butler talked about in this book. And we'll talk a little bit about Parable of the Talents as well, because we can't talk about both of them if we're going to talk about it, right? So we'll talk a little bit about both. But we're mostly going to focus on this dynamic conversation I'm super excited to have because Brooke and Dante separately have had conversations with me about this book and have like a love with this book. And so I'm going to share that conversation kind of in a public way today. So I'm Tanisha Brandon Felder, the host of Talking Books with Tanisha. I am going to just thank you all for being here. I would like to ask Brooke Brown, my friend, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with you to share and introduce yourself. Like, who are you? What are three things that we should know about you in the way of introduction?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I am, I think, just always see myself as an educator. It's my 20th year in education. And I am a lover of books and new ideas and learning and being wrong. And just learning others' experiences and perspectives. And I'm a mom. I have four kids, and they inspire me every day to do this messy, beautiful work.
Thank you, Brooke. Dante, tell us three things that help us introduce who you are to the group.
My name is Dante. I play hard. I am leaning into my best self. I love just all things, well, not all things Star Wars. I will be boycotting the Mandalorian and Grogu. That should not be made into a film. I have a warped sense of humor, and it comes out in my creativity and also the way I engage with other folks. The last thing I and who I am is I'm wonderful.
Thank you, Dante.
No, thank you.
I appreciate having this, having both of you here. This is a real conversation. So I was telling our presenter, our guest before we start, like I don't really edit and try and make it look perfect. This is a real authentic conversation. So what you see is what you're going to get. If whether you're watching it live here or having a chance to watch it later on YouTube. So um, thank you for that introduction. I feel like I have a little bit of a more of an insight on both of you. All those things were beautifully anticipated. Like I know what you all value, and I appreciate that. Um, all right, let's get into it because we're going to have a good conversation. Here's what drew me together with these two, particularly with you two, and particularly. Um, I remember that Brooke and I think we're doing like maybe a facilitation together or something about a year and a half ago, and I was telling her I would just finished reading, like finally had just read Parable of the Sower. And I was like, I have to go into Parable of the Talent. I think you actually said you should read Parable of the Talent next, something like that. And at that point, because I was late to the Octavia Butler game, it took me a second to kind of like put my mind around what I was reading and also to realize we were right on the precipice of like this being real, like things were starting to happen. Um, Brooke, why do you love this book?
Ooh, that's so good. I don't. I don't think I love this book. I
Mm,
think this book found me,
okay.
if that makes sense. This was one of the hardest books I think to read, and I couldn't put it down. And I think what was so powerful, if we think about like the very first day, like thinking about 2024 and having that like, oh, today is the first day of Parable, just
Mm,
like 2026 is the first year of Hunger Games if we fast forward to the 75th. And so just really thinking about the connections and the parallels to the present. And um, I think being able to read both of them was also, it was like leaning into fear.
mm,
I am not someone who likes change. I like when things stay the same. I'm really boring. I am a very simple person in that I just want, you know, life to stay simple, and everything about this book is the opposite of that.
mhm,
And so I think it was really challenging to me in a lot of different ways. And so I think that's what really drew me to this book and really transformed. It was a kind of before and after moment, sort of like the first time I read Their Eyes Were Watching God.
mm,
And
mm.
yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Thank you. Yeah, Dante, what about you?
There are some movies I would rewatch over and over and over and over again. Road Warrior was one, Night of the Living Dead 2, Dawn of the Dead 3. And folks would say, how does that connect? All of them are about end of days.
Mm,
And as I watched these films, I also learned over and over and over again about survival. They gave seeds of, it was a horrific scenario. Um, it felt hopeless, but again, they created a mental model for how to survive the apocalypse, how to survive end of days. And the book Parable of the Sower is a clear blueprint on what is required, what the recipe is, what the seeds of success are. One would be community. Two would be preparation and for the future. I'm not going to get into like a whole bunch of plots, but just thinking about like how we can prepare. And I'm not saying this, I'm super hopeful for our future, and I think we have a lot to do and a lot to offer. But I think that we also have to be prepared in order to make that shift that Mother Nature is going to make, which might be climate change. It also could mean the decimation of the education system, which Linda McMahon is running the education secretary of education, and then you have the Highline School District or school districts who are parroting schooling onto others, to students. And what does that look like for the future? So just thinking uh, like what if we were given these secret ideas who read this book that we can begin to make a shift and change and prepare our future generations for what we don't know will exist in 200 years, 300 years, or even 50 years.
mhm. Ooh, yeah, we're getting deep already. Like we've already kind of like skipped ahead to like quite a few things. We're gonna come back and we're gonna keep revisiting because I think that we can't get deep enough with this story. Like there's so many layers to it. Um, One thing that I'm curious about is as you've been kind of navigating this story in particular, Parable of the Sower. What are some personal connections that you have found, either in like how you've taken the story forward or things that you've like kind of applied to your life or conversations which you've had with others? Like, how do you find this to be personally connected to who you are? And we'll start with Dante this time.
I'm going to read this quote: embrace diversity, unite or to be divided, robbed, ruled, killed by those who see you as prey, embrace diversity or be destroyed. That's simple. And like if we're looking at what's happening, what's like the number one strategy and tool that administrations are using, division.
Mhm.
And if we allow those who are dividing it, to be successful, we will die.
Mhm.
As there's not, I mean, we see people dying.
Mhm.
We see people struggling. We see food being cut. We see resources are being, and so that we do amazing protests in silos, and it's not sustained. And when we have sustained collect, like, when I'm not talking about just collective on the streets, but collective for the education, collective for resources for communities, collective protests for true transformational change, then that's when we'll begin to make that change. But when we are um, doing our protests and we post on our Instagram to show that we were woke and we're doing our thing, then that's not going to be changed. But just thinking about like how can we remain united when they have thousands of resources to divide us? What it looks like when we were talking about being robbed of what are we getting is not just our money, that's part of it with the resource, but we're getting robbed of our will. And when that happens, when we lose our will, then we lose our fight. When we lose our fight, then that's when it's over.
Mhm.
So like, how do we remain diverse and united and ready to rock? So I think that that's what spoke to me, like with this text in this book. And when I read that passage, and I've seen and the protagonist, I think she was 15, 16 at the time, and understand. And also, I was all into Serafina and seeing like all these youth saying, no, we are going to fight the system and we're going to create our own future. I was just really compelled to use this as my own like Bible or blueprint or inspirational quote of the
Mhm.
day. So I'm just really excited about this book and what it can teach, what it has taught me over the last 20 plus years. I've had an opportunity to read Parable of the Sower, Octavia Butler.
Thank you. We're going to go
No, thank
deeper
you.
into some of the things that you've learned too. Brooke, what about you? Like, what is the connection that you feel to the story?
Yeah, I think two things that are revealed pretty quickly in Parable of the Sower is really on page 10, she's talking about the folks that live without the walls to protect them. And I'm really thinking about privilege, and it talks about how they're desperate or crazy or both, and that's enough to make anyone dangerous.
Mhm.
And I think a lot about how um, when and then I think about the hyper empathy that she has, and
Mhm.
she keeps
Mhm.
saying like her parents are like just stop, like you can beat it, you don't have to give into it, and like you can forget about it. And I just think about my own desire for justice that I've had for my whole life, and how much more deeply my understanding of justice has continued to grow since the birth of my son, and understanding how much of my own views of justice was rooted in ableism,
Mhm.
and how uh, he has taught me so much about my own things that I wasn't able to see or experience. And then I also think about her in Earthseed, which I'm a lover of books, so I've scanned every one of my books, and so my library is called Earthseed.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm a person of faith, and so I have continued to unravel my faith in many ways, and it's gotten much wider and much deeper, and it looks much different than it did when I was in my teens or in my 20s. And um, I think really understanding in this book about how much um, so many things were done in the name of faith is such a parallel to what's happening right now. And uh, yeah, so I think that's what I'm really connected to is the hyper empathy piece and my faith.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that in. One thing I want to encourage, like those of you who are watching us right now in this Zoom room with us, if there are things that resonate with you or things that you're like, yeah, that's me too, like feel free to use the reactions and all of that, like, be as engaged as you want to be. And then we'll definitely be opening it up a little bit later for some open questions or sharings of your own reflections. Okay, so one of the things that motivated me to have this particular book talk right now is because I was watching what was happening in our country as well. And like as Nate was sharing, like we have like these kind of like some, siloed but powerful, I think, things are trying to like really galvanize and organize in protests and like resistance and like, the face of what is really very much like if not the beginning, the middle of what's happening in this book that we're talking about. And for me, like I've always gone to books as like lessons, like like lesson, holders or something. I feel like I learn lessons. I learn more about other people, about myself, about things that are happening. And I felt like there are conversations that need to be happening, that are happening, but conversations that need to be happening in public spaces. And I was in a conversation last night where we had a chance to witness like what happens when we are breaking that divide and having the conversations that we're designed not to be having like intentionally so that we can stay separate. And so this is an opportunity for us to come together. Like I'm looking at like who's in this room right now. There's a little bit of everyone, which is really beautiful to me because you couldn't predict who would necessarily show up or who would be here. And yet we're having a common conversation right now. And so that matters to me. This book right now, why does it matter right now to you? Like, why is this the book that we should be talking about and thinking about and critically examining right now in this moment? Brooke, what do you think?
Yeah, I think back to the conversation that Lauren has with her friend when she gets scolded by her father, because she's like, "Yo, how many of the books have you read at your parents' house?"
Mhm.
And she's like, "Not that many." And she is taking it upon herself to read about survival and to read about things that could help her to survive.
Mhm.
And her dad's response is like, "You're gonna scare her."
Mhm.
And I think what I really connect and resonate with that, and sort of with reading challenging literature, with reading texts that are not comfy, that really force you to think about your own uh like your own death, your the fall of civilization,
Yeah.
like all of these really sort of like depressing things,
Mhm.
is not something that maybe you want to read before you go to bed, and is something really important because I think what it helps us to lean into is to think about those difficult things. I think we live in a time where when I open up my social media feed, it's a recipe for my daughter's recently gluten and dairy free. So it's a gluten and dairy free recipe. It's probably some home renovation, and then an example of genocide or oppression or police violence, and then another recipe, and
Mhm.
then another picture of someone's cute kiddo with Down syndrome. And so we are consistently bombarded. And another thing that, they're so desensitized to violence in this book,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
just the way that things are.
Mhm.
And I feel like this is an invitation for us to not feel like this is normal. And I think the sort of the chaos of this time and the mass distractions that are happening on purpose, something to push against that. And I feel like the blueprint that she is leaving us is that dreaming, is that imagining something different, um, is uh, is a way forward. And so I think that is something that I'm really connecting with her in this text, and that. I mean, it's like super corny, but like the only thing to fear is fear itself.
Mhm.
But it kind of is like
Yeah.
the more that you lean into, like, I'm really afraid of this. It's like, okay, I have a great therapist who I call her my paid best friend. And, that's like conversation we have like, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? And then you allow yourself to think about that. And then you're like, okay, now what's the most likely?
Mhm.
Or how can we be prepared for that? And so I think just acknowledging fear sort of robs it of its power. And
Yeah.
so I think, and collectively, when we're in community, I think that's the best antidote to fear.
Yeah, thank you for that. Dante, what about you? What are you thinking is this book right now?
I think it for me when I read it first read it, I just was really, which I didn't understand, is how she began to understand self and to really cultivate self and prepare herself for things that she did not know will take place. And just thinking about like how like I'm in the education space and also in doing other things, and like when we don't understand self institutionally, culturally, individually, then we flounder.
Hmm.
And Lord, she had a very clear, this is who I am. And she began to structure pillars to help support that self. So when she started thinking about the spirituality of self, understanding like I need to understand the lands and live off the land, that's a pillar. Understanding how to fight, that's a pillar. And that really, what I'm starting to think about like now is I don't know if you heard Killer Mike when he was speaking to the people, he asked, like, how many people are about you? You're saying that you are power to the people, but are you prepared? How many people are really prepared to live off the land? How many people really know martial arts? How many people really know how to invest in community, invest in self? So he started asking these poignant, powerful questions to the people. Are you prepared to live? Are you prepared to survive if need be? And people, there was pushback, just like in this book, we see her community pushes back, her father pushes back, her friends push back. Folks that she meets on her journey to Pacific Northwest, they push back. So there's this understanding, but she's so true in knowing that this is who I am. It didn't matter if folks started to push back. It didn't matter that her brother didn't believe. It didn't matter that her father didn't believe. She knew who she was. So I think doing the work is, do you have a core understanding of self? And that this book really informally, I would say, not informally, but um, that it allows this protagonist to go on this amazing arc of self-discovery. But at 15, she just like, let me go Martin or Malcolm or these other big figures. They understand that this is who I am and this is my role in the society that we live in now.
Hmm.
And off topic, just thinking on top, I heard a Star Wars reference that she is like, she has this amazing hyper empathy and she's like Luke Skywalker. She's isolated and alone and wants to, she's in this gated community and she wants more. She senses something more. And I think that we all sense that,
Hmm.
but we don't, or we're scared to talk about what that possibly could be.
Hmm.
And I see that in many different facets in nonprofits and in education systems and screenplays and in many different ways of storytelling. But we just have to be clear on this is what who we are, and this is again projecting what our world, the world we want.
Hmm. Ooh, okay, so there's a couple of things that have come up since you started talking. First of all, I want to capture that Brooke, you mentioned Hunger Games and made a comparison to Hunger Games kind of early on as we were starting to talk, which made me think like that should be our next book talk. Like I would love to have a live conversation around Hunger Games and unpack that. Um, and just kind of what it looks like, to create this society or be living in a society that really puts us against each other with these kind of like vague opportunities around resources. Really, it's about power and other dynamics. So that's one thing. I also want to talk about like my personal connection around this book and Parable of the Talent was having like read lots of Stephen King and always like had been a fan of his stories and like that kind of the fear and the kind of anticipation that he creates in his stories. I don't think I've ever been fearful of a book more than these two books. And I think when you said that, Brooke, I was like, these aren't books necessarily that I like because like I mean they're really beautifully written. It's really good storytelling. they were very scary. I think they were scary because there was so much truth and realness in it that you could literally see it happening. And there wasn't protection around the pain and like the rawness that was shared. Like she told you and she put it on the page and everything was right there. And even when you think you could be desensitized to it, she wouldn't allow you to do that. Octavia Butler has a really great way of just like saying, no, you're going to sit here and you're going to witness and you're going to participate and you're going to feel it. And so I had never really engaged in a book in that way. I was thankful, but also was like, I feel like I had been through something after I read both of them. And I read them back to back, which I think was, another thing too, is like it was a lot, but I needed to have that a lot at the same time. Like I needed to finish that story and see where it went. Which makes me think about the symbolism of the gate that was surrounding Lauren's, her neighborhood and the perceived protection and that did not create. Like there was a protection idea. Like we have this idea that this gate's going to protect us, and then that gate came down. And let's go into that part because now we're going to go a little bit into like directly connecting to what we're seeing right now. The gate is down. And I want to ask us, like, Octavia Butler does a really good job of like giving us some warning signs. So my question is, what warning signs does Butler highlight about how dictatorship takes hold? And we are definitely right now in the control of a dictator. So like, what are we seeing about some warning signs that we should be paying attention to? You want to start us off, Dante?
Yeah, they're not warning signs, it's happening. I mean, if you get press getting locked up, constitutional uh, is getting trampled every day. There's something new. So I think that we're beyond warning signs. It's happening. So there's like Trump's. There's always something in the courts that is. Um, I think that, I'm kind of rambling because I'm trying to really be clear on what I want to say around this. That we have to prepare for a new America in 2028. So I think there's so many ramifications of ill contempt that has eroded faith in the press and justice and the way we engage with our families, the way we engage with people in our communities. I think that because we were so complacent and our we were flexing our hubris for so long that we never assumed or thought about or even lost, even in the schools, just side questing here, that we lost our civics, we lost arts, we lost humanities being taught in the schools. And so there's no understanding or grounding of what our past, present, or future can be. We lost that, and we're all complicit in it. We have not spent the quality time or the resources inside the schools to make sure that our humanity is intact. We have not invested in understanding our civics and laws. And so when people are talking about the Constitution, they don't know. That's abstract. If we're talking about the Fourth Amendment or the Fifth Amendment or the Seventh Amendment, people don't know. They don't understand what their liberties are. So if we don't understand that in the schools, if we don't understand that, if our students don't understand it and our community members don't understand it, it's really easy to begin to dangle a carrot in front of folks and distract folks and begin to like not just erase it on and the idea, but we can begin to change it in the policies that we make. I'm just going to be blunt. We are dumb. We're shooting ourselves in the foot, and we're not apologizing for our just diminishing returns and diminishing understanding of the education. And if we don't get back to the roots, and if we don't get back to, and I'll just throw out Fahrenheit 451, where they warned, same thing, that society is getting rid of porches, where we had these amazing discussions and discourse. And if we don't have porches, and we don't have community spaces, if we don't have these opportunities for play and to bring joy to ourselves and to each other, we begin to lose. And so we're all complicit in what's happening, but I do believe that we have to begin to rethink of how we do education. We need to stop cosplaying education and begin to put resources into the humanities, the arts, and civic education.
Mhm. Thank you. Brooke, what do you think? What are you realizing or seeing as signs or kind of where we're heading or where we are?
Um, I have two things. I'm always into like making connections. So when I taught AP Lit, one of the stories we read was Nadine Gormier's Once Upon a Time. And I think about apartheid South Africa and this family who builds this fence with razor wire, and they're going to protect their family, right? They're going to insulate themselves from the other. And ultimately, what ends up happening, spoiler alert, if you haven't read it, it was written in 1989, so you're a little late. Um, no judgment though, you should still read it. But he dies, yeah, accidentally.
Mm,
And so I just think about the cost of turning away. I think the cost of um, insulating ourselves. I think that's leaning into our privilege and not having to engage. I think on page 20, I think this is something that is really connected. It says he's talking about space,
mm,
her dad, and he says secretaries of astronautics don't have to know much about science, they have to know about politics. And then he says bread and circuses. That's what he says about space news. Politicians and big corporations get the bread, and we get the circus. And I
mm,
think about Panem is when
mhm.
we think about Hunger Games, like
Yeah.
bread and circus, right? Like that is what it's about. And so when I think about that, even like the capital, like the billionaires are the ones that get the bread, and the rest of us are left to deal with the chaos, with the circus. And so I think that is what I see a lot of. I see a lot of people with privilege, a lot of people with monetary resources, with time privilege, with language privilege, with just different kinds of privilege, being able to turn off the news, being able to disengage, being able to say, I'm not interested in politics. And ultimately, I think that is what we're seeing. And I think for those of us that are connected to the folks that are losing hope, what we are quickly understanding is when you don't have hope, when you don't have purpose, when you don't feel like you are connected to anything, that is when you know we're in a different situation. I'll just say that. And so I think when we stop caring about one another, when we stop um, realizing our shared humanity, I saw a quote recently that said, "Everyone wants a village, and no one wants to be a villager."
Mm,
There's a cost to
mhm,
show up for each other, and
mhm,
such a huge benefit. And
yeah.
I think that's what we are really missing is that we are so stuck on not being what's the word I'm looking for? Like uh inconvenienced,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
That we miss out on what happens when we show up for each other, when we are in community. Really beautiful things can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, they can. Look at this community. Like it's really true. Yeah. Um, we're going to do two more questions and then we're going to open it up into the group. So those of you who are watching, I want to get you ready to get your questions or your sharings with us. We want to learn from you and hear from you as well. Um, let's talk a little bit about this idea of doing the right thing and oppression at the same time. So the question is, how does Butler complicate the idea of doing the right thing under oppressive systems? Like, what is that about, Brooke?
Man, so many things. One of the things that I think really stuck with me in Parable of the Talents, um, when she goes to find her mom,
Mhm,
and is angry with her mom for not looking hard enough for her,
Mhm.
not and she really accuses her of loving Earthseed more than her. And I think sometimes and I can speak from personal experience, y'all, I got four kids and they're really spread out. So 22, 18, 13, 5, 10 out of 10 don't recommend that spread. Um, but it's hard.
Mhm.
It's hard because there is no way that you can do everything well and right all the time. And so if I'm showing up for this event tonight, I'm missing giving my son a bath.
Mhm.
If I am um, working on a talk or showing up for community to support the students in community that I serve, then I could be missing having dinner with my family. And so I think what's really resonating with me when I think about I don't even remember what the question was. I've just like talked around the
No,
circle.
you're good. Doing the right thing under
Oh yeah,
oppressive
yeah.
systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. It just feels like you can never do the right thing.
Mm.
Like you're just always letting someone down. And so I think what I'm really having to learn is who I'm more ready to let down
Mhm.
and who I'm more ready to show up for.
Mm.
And so I am not gonna keep showing up for the capitalist machine,
Mhm.
but I will show up for folks, right? And so all of my work that I want to engage in is about you know, um, all of us being free, all of us feeling supported, all of us feeling like we belong. And so, when I was in the classroom, it was so much about how can we support creating where we show up for things that don't directly impact us?
Mhm.
How do we help our students build that muscle to care? And because they're born with it, and somehow through lots of different things, I think it gets taught out of them. And so, how are we really returning to that? How are we returning to humanity? How are we returning to community? And ultimately, it's rooted in love, love for self, love for one another, love for our planet and our natural world. And so, I think that's what I think a lot about. And I think that when um, when we're not leaning into that, it's about extraction and what we can take from one another. And we were put here to do so much more than that.
Yeah, yeah, we were. So I think that's a good segue into our last question. I'm going to have both of you respond to this. And this is really, I promised we were going to end with hope. We're going to really talk about like what is the hope within all of this because it is really easy right now to get lost in defeat and sadness. And I was actually in a webinar earlier today with Michael Threets, the new host of Reading Rainbow. It was really amazing, Brooke. You would have loved it. Yeah. It was so good. And he was reading his new book about the library is a place for everyone, basically. And he was saying, like he deals really publicly. He's talked about like I guess his struggle with mental illness. And you have the book, don't you? Yeah. Of course you have the book. It was really sweet. He did a read aloud and he basically was talking about how the library is for every single person. I'm so happy you're here. It was so welcoming and so cheerful, and he was so happy. And he was saying that, like, if you asked him right now, like, how are you doing? He would say, I'm not doing well at all. Like, I'm really not doing well. Like, I'm figuring out a way to kind of get through. And he has talked about his struggle with mental illness and how like sometimes his mental health is not always in the best space. And he was very much gracious in how he was sharing that enthusiasm and openness around like where we can be happy in the spaces in the library. But there is a deep reality that a lot of us are not doing well, and a lot of us are trying to figure out, where we can do better and who we can be with. And I just want to encourage everyone like to find the communities that are filling up your heart and your souls and your spirits because that sustainability, like this, like many people say, this too will pass, and it sounds very cliche and very blasé, but I do believe that this too will pass, and if we hold on to each other, we will be there when it passes. Like we have more love in this world than we have hate. I really do believe that. So that's my piece of hope I want to give to you. I'd love to hear, Dante, what's a piece of hope that you want to give to our listeners?
Here's what I would my here's how I run my like lean into my hope. I get to work with some amazing people. Naomi's on deck and JB's on deck. So we have like my Goddard people and education people, and just seeing like right now at Evergreen, there are Naomi's helped launch a film project that's serving about 160 students. And initially it was just her like struggling people get there, and then it became a team of people, a community of people. That's hopeful.
Hmm.
That's hopeful to see like there are people who want to like support and serve their students and provide these opportunities to, hey, you can be a filmmaker if you choose to. You can be a storyteller. You can design and make your own story. That's hopeful. So personally, like supporting, I have a shirt on, Next Hero Up right here. I don't know if you can see it. There you
Hmm.
go. So next hero up, that has four buckets. One bucket would be content creation, film, theater, and graphic novel. Two, providing fellowships and grants for folks. Three, sending teaching artists into the world to help support. And four, having equipment rental so that way people can have access. So that also brings me hope of something that I inherited from my grandmother, like resources from my grandmother when she passed, and being able to like serve others. That's what gets me going right now.
Thank you, Dante.
So hope, keep hope alive.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Next Hero Up in just a few minutes. Brooke, what about you? Like, what hope do you want to offer us?
Yeah, I just think about how hope is a discipline, right?
Mm,
Miriam Kaba talks about that. And I am constantly asking elders and folks that I admire and respect how they're faring. And that's their response, Tanisha, very much is we've been here before.
mhm,
And I'm like, really? But for real? And I'm like a little bit speculative. And so I am, really going back. And so I am continuing to root in my history. I'm thinking about my ancestors. I'm thinking about those that came before us. I just read Homegoing by Yaa
mhm,
Gyasi.
mhm.
I'm currently reading Black AF History,
Okay.
and allowing myself to mourn and
Mhm,
to grieve. I think a lot of times in this Western society, we think we have to just show up and be okay. And Ross Gay has in his Book of Delights, I think it is, but he talks about inviting grief to dinner.
mhm.
And what does it look like if we made that a daily or weekly practice?
Yeah.
And just really acknowledge, like, what am I grieving? Because if I'm allowing myself space to grieve, then I'm going to have some space to have some hope. And so for me, the ways that I'm doing that is I'm leaving some margin in my days. I joined this amazing gym that's a body positive space, and I'm being strong. I'm taking care of my body, and I am allowing myself to grieve. I'm allowing myself to be however I am. And if that looks like showing up to work um, and crying, or if that looks like being angry, allowing myself to do that and then to move through it. So I think and then to look for the micro joys, right? Because the micro joys are what's going to get us through this macro grief, y'all. And
Yeah.
so it's around, but we've got to find it. We have to find those small things. And so last week, honestly, I showed up to a conference to pour into community and to get a hug from a
Mhm,
friend I don't get to see that often.
mhm.
And that felt like the right place to be when things felt out of control.
Yeah, I love that. These two were specifically chosen because they both have a deep love of literature. They both have lots of ways in which we're thinking about how navigating this world and bringing others with them in community. Um, they also are really big lovers around, or I would say appreciators around this story, Parable of the Sower and also Parable of the Talents. Um, we're going to open it up for some Q&A, and then I'm going to have us come back together and do a little bit of a closing. So for those of you who've been watching and participating here in the Zoom, we'd love to open it up for any questions or comments or just things that you would love to share, reflections around the book, or reflections around life right now. Everything is open and ready. So when you're ready, go ahead and unmute yourself and put your voice into the space.
I'll jump in real fast.
Yeah.
It's been ages since I've read this book. I read it in grad school, so it's been that long. But one of the things that I carry with me about it is that process of saving the seeds. And this last year when I was gardening, I was like, it was cucumber season. We took the last bits of the seeds out of the cucumbers and I put them between some paper towels. And I thought of this book, and it just felt like such a nice kind of grounding moment of like carrying forward, creating life, like being normal. So I think that's the power of a really great detail in a book. It held me there.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Well,
I am moved to say thank you to you educators who educated our children well, I think. And I know you three have taught children to expect more. And through the lessons of the civil rights movement, through how they experienced life around them. And I even have to think that reading the Hunger Games when they were middle schoolers,
Mhm.
that I'm speaking just for my student, I mean, horrible. And I think it prepared. So I will tune into the next book talk, Tanisha. Um, but it just strikes me that as someone who shared this ground that we live on, Octavia Butler, that I'm late to reading it. I've wanted to read it for a long time. Now I will. But I think she has some lessons for us, speaking to us on this land,
Mhm.
and talking about saving seed. I think a word that I keep coming back to is restoration.
Mm.
There's resistance. There's a lot of good R words, but what will restoration mean after this time?
Yeah,
So
that's a
thank
really
you
good
for
point.
having this.
Thank you. Thank you, Elise.
I just want to acknowledge, I think I saw Sarah Huffbauer on here, but Sarah's the one who handed me the book years ago. I think maybe the second or third year teaching. And she said, read the book. And I read the book, and that was sparked everything. So I appreciate you, Sarah, for handing me the book and introduced me to Octavia Butler.
Yay, Sarah. Thank you, Bernard. Sorry you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you all for the talk. And I'm struck by the comments around the need to lean into the humanities and to lean into civics and history. And there's part of me that feels terrified and disappointed and scared by that. But there's also another part of me that um, feels optimistic and challenged about figuring out how we navigate that, to figure out how we teach all those things in a good way.
Mhm.
And it's making me think about, from literature, how do we find examples of ways to do that in a good way, rather than rushing to a list to do it? Because I think rushing to a list to do things is probably part of what's got us to where we are.
Mhm. Thank you for that.
I wanted to say that I read the graphic novel of this book, Parable
Mhm.
of the Sower, and
Mhm.
also Kindred, and I would not recommend. They were both very hard to read, but the stories were fabulous, and thank you so much for this talk.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I mean, I kind of wonder too, like Erin, as a librarian, like I'm wondering if there's anything that you would want to suggest or recommend that for any youth that might be interested in kind of exploring opportunities to think about change, resistance, persistence, like what comes up for you?
Yeah, I think I see books being checked out right now. I'm a middle school librarian. I see books being checked out by certain students that have to do with that. And, I think they're more affected by this than we think or we know.
Hmm.
And it's heartening to see them checking out books that will help them through this journey as we are, also doing reading books to help us get through this.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. What else?
Well, I'll just say it's been decades since I read the book and I don't remember it well. I thought I had it in my collection, but I
Mhm.
looked in the Octavia Butler section. I have Lilith, Fledgling, and Kindred, but
Okay.
I'll have to go get the parables to reread them. But what gives me hope um, are people like you, Tanisha, and you, Dante, and Naomi, who teaches,
Mhm.
and Zarabeth, who practices medicine. And as an old person, I see hope in the younger generations.
Mm. Yeah, I see hope in you, Miss Sal. You were always so present, like when Naomi was, in school and always being such a great. I mean, it's nice to have three generations, and I know Naomi had to leave, but like have three generations present on here. So I just want to recognize, I've always called her Miss Sally, but Sally Huffbauer, Sarah Huffbauer, her daughter, and then Naomi Huffbauer, I mean, Naomi True, who is Sarah's daughter. So we have three generations on the screen. Yes, beautiful. Other things that come to mind, I'm curious about just anything that you even have read or just things that have kind of resonated with you, things that are sitting on your heart or your mind.
I wanted to speak to a little bit of the individualistic kind of nature of the gated community in the
Mm,
beginning, and with so much fear in the world today of like I feel myself wanting to retreat, and trying to be mindful of like retreating into community, or a village, or like be with people. But is it because I'm wanting protection, and so this little group is going to be protected like in our gate, or is this village and these people I'm coming together with being built to fight for humanity for all? And I feel a real tension there that I haven't quite figured out, because I get this, it's like, kind of like you're protecting who's around you. And I feel like Lauren does that, they get this little group together and they're traveling, and it's like how do they share, stepping into the fear of like who to bring in and who to, is this person okay to join us? And so that, yeah, I just am, as I'm looking to deepen my village and deepen the people as we go through these really challenging times. I'm wanting to, like, am I stepping into my privilege? So I've kind of have some mixed emotions about that. I wonder if any of you would, Brooke, you had said something about everyone wants a village, but no one wants to be a villager, and like the inconvenience of maybe inviting someone into the village that, maybe they're not my vibe, but like, so I don't know if anyone wants to speak to any thoughts about that, if that makes sense. It's kind
Thanks
of
for
where my
sharing.
heart is, like that tension.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing we ask our young people to do, and I think they are the model. When I have an opportunity to be in community with students, it's like just watch them. They do it so effortlessly. I was on a school visit yesterday at a school, and just to hear their conversations and the way, I think I'm a older millennial, and I think a lot about how, I was taught to head down, just do what you need to do. You'll be able to get ahead. You'll be able to, do the things you need to do. And, I have children who were like, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. Like, and I was like, wait, that was an option? Like, I didn't know. And so I think when I think about building this beloved community, right? And I think about Grace Lee Boggs and thinking about sort of where are we on the clock of the world? And just thinking about building that beloved community. We build it by becoming it,
Mhm.
and it's in every conversation, it's in every opportunity that you have to uplift someone instead of tear them down. It's an opportunity to stand up instead of be silent. And I think when we look at opportunities as gifts instead of a chore, I think that's when we start to really impact that action and um, start to make a difference. I think for me, what I've really had to learn is I'm a recovering people pleaser. And so it doesn't feel good when people don't like me. It doesn't feel good when people, say negative things about me. And I have really learned in this season of my life that I am not, I, I think about this from Hunger Games too, being a peacemaker or a peacekeeper. I'm not interested in keeping the peace.
Mhm.
I'm interested in creating a beloved community where we have access for everyone to have safety and belonging and ultimately peace. And there is no goal of peacekeeping. And so I think those things, those distinctions that we have to learn how to make, are really helpful for how we show up in every space we have the opportunity to serve in.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That was perfect. Um, I can't believe that the hour has flown by already. Like it's 8 o'clock. And I just want to say we're definitely going to have a Hunger Games live session. So y'all get ready for that. And I mean like all of them. So like go through. So excited about that conversation to come. I want to honor the fact that this is Black History Month, and I really wanted to focus and center our Black scholar who also happens to be, for those of you who are in the Pacific Northwest, like a neighbor, a person like an ancestor who was a neighbor. And so wanted to uplift Octavia Butler in our space. I want to thank Brooke Brown. I want to thank Dante Felder for joining in for this conversation and helping us really unpack this story in this book. I want to recognize Kim Darcy for all of your moderating and making sure our space was safe so we could have the conversation in a safe and peaceful way. I want to thank all of you for showing up tonight and just being here to be a witness and also participating in this conversation. Let's have more conversations like this. I want to thank our sponsor, Next Hero Up. Dante showed his shirt, but it's a nonprofit that is really helping our youth and adults have space and creativity. So look for Next Hero Up. I'll be dropping some links on the YouTube channel notes so you can see how to access that. Brooke, if you have anything that you want to share or highlight, now's a good time for you to drop some of those upcoming things or things for us to think about.
Just that this is the 100th anniversary of Black History Week, Black History Month. And so, just any opportunity that you have to continue to expand your own learning with books that you're purchasing, with books that you're reading. I'm really good at purchasing books. I have my TBR is very long. But I'm purposely reading things that bring me joy and things that challenge me. And so, how are we continuing to do that and uplifting so many artists? And I have this one quote that I just want to share with you. I was actually on a school visit. I'm a big fan of Faith Ringgold and her work. And I saw this quote that says, I don't want people to be able to look and look away because a lot of people do that with art. I want them to look and see. I want to grab their eyes and hold them because this is America. And I think what we are experiencing right now is what America is and has always been. It's just the first time that some of us are seeing it. And so, how can we be gentle with those that are seeing it for the first time and continue to challenge them and invite them along to dream for a better future that fits everyone?
Love it. If you're interested in looking at more Black History Month book recommendations, please follow me on Instagram. Every day I'm posting a new one for the next few days until so you'll be able to find lots of recommendations there. Please find some of the books and the quotes that Brooke just finished mentioning. Please, most importantly, like and share if you enjoyed this experience. This will be uploaded to YouTube very soon. And thank you just so much for being a part of this. And thank you, like share, subscribe, and mostly just read. Like just get a book and read. That's all. Find a good book, read, and share it with someone else. And Miss Sally, I will trade you my copy of Parable of the Sower for your copy of Kindred. I'm supposed to be reading that next. So, all right, everybody.
That's a whole nother book talk.
Uh-oh.
Oh my goodness. And I have to tell you, like I was trying to like review before tonight. I was like, I
Yeah.
gotta review. I was like, where are my copies? I lent them to somebody. I was like having to like rack my brain. So
Yeah, good books are worth sharing.
yeah.
All right, everybody, thank you for being here tonight. I'm
And
going to
watch Life
close
of
our
Chuck.
room. What
Life
do
of
you say?
Chuck.
Life of Chuck.
Watch Life
Okay.
of Chuck.
Life of
Lot.
Chuck.
Okay.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.